December 18th, 2022, Lusail, Qatar. 89,000 people are screaming. And the World Cup final is tied at 3 goals each. On one side, a 23-year-old who has just scored a hat-trick in a final and still might lose. On the other, a 35-year-old playing the last World Cup match of his life, minutes from either immortality or the cruelest heartbreak in the history of sport. This is the greatest final ever played. To understand what was at stake in Lusail, you have to go back 8 years, to the night Lionel Messi walked past the World Cup trophy and couldn't look away. Rio de Janeiro 2014, the Maracanã. Argentina lose the final to Germany in extra time to a 113th minute volley from Mario Götze. As Messi walks up to collect his runners-up medal, he passes within touching distance of the golden trophy and the cameras catch his glance. It becomes one of the most famous photographs in the history of sport, the greatest player on earth, staring at the one thing he cannot have. The years that followed were brutal. A lost Copa America final in 2015, another in 2016, where Messi missed his penalty in the shootout, and quit the national team that very night. He was 29, a 5-time World Player of the Year. And back home, they still ask the question that cut deeper than any defeat. Why does he never win it with Argentina? Diego Maradona had dragged this country to a World Cup almost single-handedly in 1986. Until Messi matched that, a part of Argentina would never fully claim him. He came back, of course. He always came back. But the doubt followed him to Russia in 2018, where Argentina were knocked out in the round of 16. Torn apart by a French teenager named Kylian Mbappé. Then, in November 2020, Maradona died. A nation grieved, and the question grew louder than ever. Who carries Argentina now? The answer came in Rio de Janeiro, at the Maracanã. Of all places, Copa America 2021. Argentina beat Brazil in Brazil. And at 34 years old, Messi finally held a major trophy in the sky blue shirt. Hardened teammates sobbed on his shoulder. The dam had broken, but everyone, Messi most of all, knew there was one mountain left. He announced that Qatar would be his 5th World Cup and his last. One final chance. Qatar began as a disaster. November 22, 2022, Argentina, unbeaten in 36 matches, lose their opening game to Saudi Arabia. It stands among the greatest upsets in World Cup history. And it meant Messi's farewell would be played entirely without a safety net. Lose once more, and it was over. What followed turned a football team into a crusade. Mexico, beaten, broken open by a Messi strike from distance. Poland, swept aside. Australia, survived. The Netherlands, outlasted in a brutal quarter-final shootout. A match so hostile it produced a record pile of yellow cards. Croatia demolished 3-0 in the semi. Messi scored in every knockout round. Back home, a country deep in economic crisis poured into the streets by the millions, singing one song over and over, "Now We Dream Again." But waiting in the final stood a monster. France, the defending champions, chasing the first back-to-back World Cups since Pelé's Brazil in 1962. They had lost the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, Karim Benzema, to injury on the eve of the tournament and cruised to the final anyway. Because they had the one player on earth whose claim to the future was as strong as Messi's claim to the past, Kylian Mbappé. 23 years old, a world champion at 19, 5 goals in the tournament and accelerating. 2 number 10s, the king of this era against the man built to rule the next one. And they knew each other intimately. Club teammates in Paris, friends who shared a dressing room. December 18th, Lusail, 89,000 inside, more than 1 billion watching. Kickoff. From the first whistle, it was a heist in plain sight. Argentina's coach Lionel Scaloni had saved one last surprise. Angel Di Maria, the man who scores in finals, started on the left wing instead of his usual right. France never solved him. For 45 minutes, the world champions chased sky blue shadows. Minute 23, Di Maria dances into the box and Ousmane Dembélé clips his ankle. Penalty. Messi waits, reads Hugo Lloris, and rolls the ball the other way. 1-0, his 6th goal of the tournament. Minute 36, Perfection, a goal that academies will study for 100 years. Messi flicks the ball out of a crowd with one touch. Julian Alvarez gallops through midfield. Alexis Mac Allister carries it half the length of the pitch and slides it across the box without breaking stride. And Di Maria, the man who missed the 2014 final through injury, arrives at the far post to sweep it home. 2-0. Di Maria sinks to the grass, sobbing before the ball has stopped rolling. And France? Nothing. Literally nothing. The defending champions went the entire first half without a single shot of any kind. Didier Deschamps was so alarmed that he did something almost unheard of in a World Cup final, a double substitution in the 41st minute before halftime, hauling off Dembélé and Olivier Giroud, France's all-time record goal scorer. 2-0 at the break, and the second half changed nothing. Argentina passed, France chased, the clock melted. When Di Maria left the pitch after the hour, Lusail rose to applaud a man whose work looked done. 70 minutes. 75. The Argentine end was already singing about the third star they would stitch above the crest. With just over 10 minutes of normal time remaining, France had still not put a single shot on target. Television cutaways found Mbappé, silent, expressionless, jaw set. The final was a procession. And then Nicolas Otamendi grabbed Randal Kolo Muani. Minute 80. Kolo Muani goes down under Otamendi's challenge, and the referee points to the spot. Mbappé, anonymous for 80 minutes, buries the penalty low into the corner. 2-1. What happened next is 97 seconds that belong to football history. Almost immediately, France win the ball back, and it finds Mbappé on the edge of the box. A 1-2 with Marcus Thuram, and Mbappé meets the return ball first time on the volley, arrowing it past the keeper before he can move. 2-2, 97 seconds between the goals. Lusail detonates. A World Cup that had been won for 80 minutes was suddenly, impossibly level. Extra time. By now, the match had abandoned tactics entirely, just two heavyweight champions trading haymakers. Minute 109. Lautaro Martinez hammers a shot, Lloris blocks it, and there is Messi, of course there is, stabbing the rebound over the line before the scrambling defenders can claw it back. The officials confirm it crossed. 3-2. In the 109th minute of his final World Cup match, Lionel Messi has scored what should be the winning goal of a World Cup final. Should be. Minute 118. A French strike cannons into Gonzalo Montiel's arm inside the box. Handball. Penalty. And Mbappé, the entire World Cup resting on one kick, does not blink. 3-3. A hat-trick in a World Cup final. Only one other man in history had ever done it, England's Geoff Hurst, 56 years before. It still wasn't over. Minute 123. A long ball splits the exhausted Argentine line, and suddenly Kolo Muani is through, one-on-one, the entire World Cup on his boot. Emiliano Martinez does the only thing left. He makes himself enormous and blocks it with his outstretched leg. Seconds later, at the other end, Lautaro rises and heads inches wide. The final whistle blows. 3-3. After 120 minutes of the wildest momentum swings a final has ever produced. The World Cup would be decided from 12 yards. France went first. Mbappé, of course, his third penalty of the night, buried. Messi answered almost gently, passing the ball into the net. Then came Emiliano Martinez. Kingsley Coman stepped up, and Martinez plunged to his left and beat the ball away. Save. Paulo Dybala on the pitch only minutes made it 2-1. Aurélien Tchouaméni walked forward next, and Martinez, deep in his dark arts, tossed the ball away down the pitch and made the young midfielder go and fetch it. Tchouaméni dragged his kick wide, Leandro Paredes scored, Kolo Muani kept France alive. And so it came down to Gonzalo Montiel, the man whose handball had forced this shootout. Redemption from 12 yards, he sent Lloris the wrong way, and the World Cup belonged to Argentina. Messi dropped to his knees in the center circle and vanished under a mountain of teammates. Di Maria wept again. 89,000 people watched a 35-year-old finally stop chasing. The numbers were absurd. Messi, 7 goals, a record 26 World Cup matches, and the Golden Ball, the first player ever to win it twice. Mbappe, the golden boot with 8 goals and the loneliest walk in football, consoled on the pitch by the president of France. Argentina, champions of the world for the third time, 1978, 1986, 2022, 36 years after Maradona's team, a third star for the crest at last. When Messi finally lifted the trophy, draped in a black ceremonial robe by the Emir of Qatar, Buenos Aires came apart. The victory parade drew millions, a crowd so vast the players had to abandon the bus and finish the route by helicopter. They call it the greatest final ever played, and the case is hard to argue. 6 goals, 2 of the sport's defining icons trading miracles, a hat-trick in defeat, a save with the final breath of extra time, and redemption from the penalty spot. The king got his crown. But the heir left Lusail with a quiet, dangerous fact in his pocket. Kylian Mbappé now has more World Cup final goals than Lionel Messi. And he is only getting started. This summer, the World Cup comes to North America, and France come hunting for the trophy they lost on penalties. So tell us in the comments, was Lusail the greatest final of all time? Or is the rematch about to top it? And the next story opens on the strangest night in World Cup history, Paris, 1998, and the mystery of Ronaldo. Subscribe so you don't miss it.